Welcome to the Soul Mirror. I'm your host, Shreya. Today we are joined by Reginald Martin, spiritual architect, metaphysician, and creator of Kametaphysics, a system that blends ancient wisdom with modern transformation. At the heart of his work lies Paradoxical HEKA, a master protocol to using breath, voice, energy, and symbolism to integrate inner conflict and unlock sovereignty. Tonight, we are exploring what it really means to rewrite the hidden scripts of religion, culture, family, and leadership that shape our sense of self. So, welcome, Reginald. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Shreya, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
And, Reginald, you call yourself a spiritual architect. So, what does that mean in practice, and how did your path lead you to design Kametaphysics?
Yeah, a spiritual architect basically means that when a person starts to change and evolve, they are literally changing themselves. So a lot of times people can start to change, especially like people that might be leaving religion, for example. They might be deconstructing. Well, they had one identity during when they were religious, but then once they leave that framework and those belief systems, then their identity is gone. So they don't identify with those ways of believing anymore. And a lot of times, what happens is people don't know what to do. They feel unbalanced, unmoored. They feel like they don't have any direction, and it's because they don't have a framework or an identity to operate in. What I do is give them the ability to reclaim or re-architect their identity in a whole new frame and system of being.
Yes, thank you for sharing this. And was there a defining moment where you realized the old frameworks just were not enough anymore?
Yeah, for me, it's just it, and that's how I came to a lot of this. Shreya, was I just through life I recognized that a lot of the old beliefs that I had just didn't work. You know, one of the defining moments for me was is I heard the idea that thoughts become things, and that's the idea of the secret, that our beliefs is what creates our reality. And I recognized that in a weird way was through my relationships. And I had not too long been divorced, but I recognized that I was really dating like the same type of woman that was, well, they might be different women, but they exhibited the same type characteristics. So what I realized was, is unless those women all got together and conspired to treat me the same way, then the only common denominator was me. And that common denominator and why I was choosing those women were based on my beliefs. And for me, that showed that what I believed ended up showing up as these women. So those beliefs became those women and how I operated with them. That was a defining moment for me to show that my internal belief system actually produced my life and how I interacted with life. And in that way, life became feedback for me.
Yes, I think that sounds like the point where tradition meets innovation, crossroad that often births something profound. Let's
Indeed, indeed.
let's talk about paradoxical HEKA. You describe it as a master protocol for integrating conflict. Can you break down how breath, voice, energy, and symbolism come together in this?
Sure. So let's take just the idea. So let's break this down piece by piece. So let's take the idea of paradox first. So a paradox, and how I define that in just a simple way, is meaning that it is something that is this and that. So a lot of times how we operate in our systems is through contradiction, meaning it has to be something that is this or that. But if you think about how the universe operates, everything exists, everything is. So everything is a paradox. It is this and that. So the idea that the foundational principle of this is that the source of creation is all things, meaning this and that. So that's just a foundational principle. Now, when we're talking about Heka, that is something, that's the idea that there is a sound or a voice that is the creation of all things. That sound is the foundational principle and organizing principle of everything in the universe, and everything is imbued with it. Well, how do you use that within your life? What that means is that you are, at your essence, you are sound or vibration. You are a part of what the organizing principle of the universe is. The source is creates everything, and we exist within that source. So Paradoxical HEKA says, how do you take this and that to basically create something new and something different, something more powerful? So you use breath and voice within a ritualistic setting that is that that basically helps you recalibrate your energetic field. So in this sense, when we are talking, the words that we use, we're actually breathing as we're talking, or we couldn't even produce the words. So Paradoxical HEKA allows you to incorporate your breath, the words, and ritual to effect change in your energetic system. This goes beyond what a lot of systems, they only focus on the mind or they only focus on the body, but you have to really get to the root where all things start is at the energetic system. And the energetic system is symbolized by life. So the energy ends up being projected as our life. Okay? That if that makes sense.
Thank you for explaining this so easily because I think it's a very complex topic, but you just described it very simply that anyone can understand.
Well, thank you, thank you. And Shreya, the ancients really did the same thing. They literally used symbols to show us these processes. And I don't know if you're familiar with like the caduceus, where you have the two serpents intertwining on a pole and going up the pole. That caduceus is actually the process of paradox symbolized, where these two serpents, they're not fighting each other, they're actually intertwining around a truth to produce enlightenment.
And how quickly can someone actually feel the shift once they engage in this practice?
They can feel the shift immediately. So I'm talking, just say for instance, somebody is dealing with, a lot of people deal with shadow work, okay? What they call shadow work. But what ends up happening is people end up, saying that you have to overcome your shadow, you have to bypass your shadow with affirmations, like, just saying affirmations that don't address the shadow, or they don't address the shadow in any kind of way and ignore it. Well, people can deal with these for years, trying to reconcile these deals. Say, for instance, grief of that from a loved one dying. They might spend years in grief, but then at some point they come to a point to where they can hold the space where they're grieving the loss, but then they can say, you know what, the joy that I felt with them is something that I can also remember. And when they hold those two paradoxes or two opposites within themselves, they actually end up producing or reconciling and bringing themselves peace. The issue that they dealt with can be in years, but that peace comes in the moment that they figure out that reconciliation. So, in this sense, paradoxical HEKA can do it instantly. Whereas with normally people will take years where they're fighting and going through whatever their process is to figure it out. But now there is an actual process to cut that down when a person actually uses paradoxical HEKA.
Yes, I think it's so powerful to imagine transformation measured in moments rather than years. And you emphasize that hidden operating systems, religion, culture, family quietly dictate our sense of worth. How can someone begin to recognize when they are living by these scripts instead of their true identity?
Yeah, a lot of times they recognize that when they're living in these scripts is when they're really feeling conflicted, they're feeling angry, they're feeling depressed. That's how they're going through their life. And these scripts are running underneath, and a lot of people don't recognize it. So, how I would help someone with paradoxical HEKA is that I would actually help them to recognize the script that's running, but then ground that script in something that is truthful. Okay. So can I do an example for you?
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay. So let's say a person they might want to change a job to they might want to change to get a new job, but they're afraid to leave where they are. Okay. But they know that if they leave that job, then it can help their family, it can help them. Okay. So paradoxical Heckle will say, even though I fear leaving my job, I can honor the truth in who I am. So that's actually reconciling the paradox right then. Even though I have that fear, I honor the truth that I am powerful and that I can make a difference in something new. That's the paradox. So honor the fear, but recognize the truth of who you are. Recognize the truth of your essence. And then that can create, when you recognize and hold those two opposing points, then it can bring peace to where you can even start to feel more confident about stepping out and making that move.
Yes. And I think that awareness feels like catching the invisible hand that has been like steering us all along. And once they see it, what is the first step to loosening the grip?
Yeah, it's just first knowing and believing that you can. That you can lose that grip, that the fear is not your reality. The fear is not your truth. The fear is your avatar that is holding on to what society has told you you can be or how you should live. So, but when you recognize that you have the ability to create your reality, if you change your thoughts, then you can change your reality. Thoughts become things. So if you believe in your fears or hold on to your fears, then those are what's going to be reflected back to you as your life. So when you change that belief, change those thoughts, then you can change your life. And that's where paradoxical HEKA actually gives you a process that you can use to cut down on going through all the difficulties, going through all the fear, years and years of trying to figure out how you can fix yourself. Recognize the fear, honor it, but also recognize the truth in the same breath. And that's how paradoxical HEKA helps you recalibrate your whole energetic field to where you can create your new reality.
Yes. And some therapists or coaches may worry that approaches like Kametaphysics replace their method. How do you see your work coexisting with modern psychological practice?
Yeah, and I have known that they can think that way, but in actuality, this can be something that helps their practice do what they do and do it better. It's something that works alongside them, because another part of that is just thinking about how we operate in an ontology of brokenness. And ontology is the ancient study of just being, of the study of who we are as individuals. But if you're operating, a lot of times the therapists and the psychologists, they are operating in a ontology of brokenness, where they're trying to fix people, where they're trying to get over the shadow, where in this way they can actually use paradoxical HEKA to reconcile the shadow and the light in order to produce wholeness. So it works right alongside with what they're doing.
Yes. And have you witnessed professionals integrating your system alongside their traditional tools?
Well, I'm not in their offices, so I haven't witnessed them doing it, but I have done it with other people. So I have witnessed how what I do works for other people, and it is something that I've used for me. So I'm not in their practices, so no, I can't say that I've actually witnessed them, but I know how it works for my clients and the customers that use and have used the products that I do over the years. Now what I've done is have the ability to now create a process and create a system where we can have an identifiable and measurable result with this.
Yes, and I think that bridging of ancient and modern feels less like competition and more like amplification. Sovereignty is central in your work. For someone who is new to this language, what does spiritual sovereignty actually look like in daily life?
Yeah, spiritual sovereignty is about really you having the recognizing that you are whole and that you are the creator of your reality. Because when you're coming from a lot of systems, and I came from a Christian religious system, you're told that the power to do anything is outside of you, that you have to worship something, you have to get a relationship with something and hope that something would grant you your wish. So the power was outside of yourself. Well, when you come to the from a metaphysics perspective, you recognize that you are the divine, that you are the divine expressing itself in human form, and that you have the ability to create just as the divine does. So that in that sense, you switch from believing something is outside of yourself to recognizing that you are the creator of your reality. That makes you sovereign over your entire expression of life in your being.
Yes. How might reclaiming it change the way they approach relationships, work, or even healing?
Yeah, it changes in a way that it helps you to basically hold space for other people to be themselves and be who they are. So a lot of times when we're not feeling sovereign or we're feeling looking at the old system, we're trying to control people and we're trying to make people fit into the box where we think that they should be and how they should live. That ends up causing us a lot of stress when they don't agree and then when they don't comply. But when you are sovereign, you recognize another sovereign human and you recognize that that sovereign person has the right to be who they are, and you can meet them in their space and hold the space for them being who they are and loving them where they are, and then you and them can coexist together and create something beautiful, whether that be in a business relationship, a romantic relationship, any type of deal where you are dealing with other people. You're not trying to control them, you're allowing them to be and they allow you to be two sovereign individuals coexisting and creating something beautiful.
Yes, and I think that paints sovereignty not as not only as a philosophy, but as a lived, embodied freedom.
Yes.
Also, in a world that thrives on comparison and external validation, how do you help people build worth that is not transactional?
Yeah, and that's just how I was just saying. I mean, you're at this point when you are a sovereign being, you're not trying to control people. You don't feel like you need to get people to do the things that make you happy. So it's not a transactional process anymore. It becomes you being who you are and extending that to the other person. When the other person can allow you to be, then you both can exist and coexist together. So it's not one trying to control the other. It's not you trading or compromising. You're both just being who you are and have the ability to rest in both of who your beings are. And then again, you can create something powerful and beautiful from that perspective of two sovereign beings.
Yes, and that feels like shifting from living to be chosen to living because you have already chosen yourself.
Oh, I love how you said that.
If after this conversation my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
Yeah, the best way is they can go to my Substack, which is reginaldmartin.substack.com. And I actually have a free download that actually helps them with of Paradoxical HEKA. And if they go to my Substack, they can see in the top menu a hidden architecture. And there's a free download that will actually walk a person through some very basics of Paradoxical HEKA and how they can use it. And especially if they're practitioners, this is something that they can actually use to help their clients. And when you can actually identify the processes and identify the transformation, then it becomes something that is exponentially monetizable for you.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all these details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily, get in touch with you, and know more from you. And thank you for guiding us through the paradox. And I think your insights into paradoxical HEKA and the hidden scripts that shape us have opened a powerful doorway. And we are deeply grateful for your clarity, depth, and courage that you have shared with us. And to all my listeners, what a rich exploration into the roots of transformation. Reginald Martin shows us that sovereignty is not something to earn, it's something to remember. By integrating paradox, listening to the body's wisdom, and unmasking hidden scripts, we open the way to a life anchored in authenticity. If tonight's conversation sparked a shift in you, take a breath, listen inward, and step into that sovereignty that has always been yours. Thank you.